Hello, and welcome to Freedom Keepers Senior Edition. Thank you for joining me, Irene, and my co host, Beverly, today. This is the podcast where we reach out to all our seniors to stand up for liberty, love of country, faith, and family. And it's really an important episode today. We're going to be talking about Congress. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. I always keep forgetting to plug that. It helps us to grow, and we'd be grateful for it. Anyways, we're going to talk about Congress today. It's in the news broadcasts a lot every day, all day long, mostly talking about either Democrats or Republicans, but lately, mostly about the Democrats. Now, both parties have power in Congress, and we want to talk about that power here. But more importantly, we want to talk about the Democrats. What they're doing is they're hiding behind an ugly mask, using their positions of power as congressmen to promote their extreme progressive agenda and narrative against the American people through their absurd actions. Yes, against us, the American people. And frankly, we wonder how the heck people can vote for them. So, Beverly, why don't you start us off recapping the basics of Congress?
Well, thank you very much, Irene. And I'd like to welcome everybody. As Irene said, please subscribe to our channel. We really need the help. It really helps an awful lot. How did it all get started? First of all, I'd like to say that it was established by the federal legislation by Article 1 of the Constitution. And it has two chambers. It has the Senate and the House of Representatives. And these two chambers, the Senate, for instance, has 100 members, and they're elected every 6 years. Conversely, the House of Representatives has 435 representatives, and they're reelected every 2 years. Now, in order to run for senator, you have to be at least 30 years old, a United States citizen for 9 years, and a resident of your state. And in order to run for the House of Representatives, you have to be 25 years old, a U.S. citizen for 7 years, and also a resident of your state. Irene, let's touch on how these representatives got here.
Okay, well, obviously, first of all, they get there by we are voting them in. Sometimes you can't believe that people do that, but they do. Senate gets two members for each state because we have 50 states, so we have 100 senators. Now, House of Representatives is apportioned a little bit differently. It's based on the residents or the population of the state, and that is based on our census, and that's why the census is so important. Now, one of the things the census does is counts all residents. It doesn't take into account whether they're citizens or not, legal or illegal. If they are residents and residing in that state, then they are counted. Now, this is why the Democrats love immigration and redistricting because they love to exploit this. The more they have in those districts, the more seats they get in the particular Congress. So that's why it's really important. But I don't think, Beverly, I don't think that was the original intent of all this.
No, no, it really wasn't. The founding fathers preferred citizen statesmen who would serve for a short period of time and then allow ordinary citizens to run for these positions. They never intended, long-term politicians, career politicians in these positions. There are senators and congressmen who have spent 35 to 40 years in Congress. And I can name some of them. Some of them are Mitch McConnell, Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Elizabeth Warren, Chuck Schumer, Susan Collins, Lisa Murkowski. I could go on and on. And yet I go back to when Mitch McConnell had an incident when he was speaking in front of millions of people. He actually froze. He froze in place. And the people around him had to just lead him away from the podium. And then, his doctor said that he didn't have a stroke, doesn't have Parkinson's, that he's fine, that he can continue in his position. Well, then, back in 2024, he froze again. Now they're going over the same spiel and they're saying the same thing. And
Unbelievable.
folks, I mean, you really need to get together about what's going on in Congress. These people are waiting to die or either retire with a huge fat pension. So, what we need to do is to vote for terms of office. Get those congressmen to start voting on something like that. But I doubt very seriously if that will ever happen.
Well, yeah, I can't see them voting themselves out of office, that's for sure.
Well, what do you think keeps them in office, Irene? Who's
Well,
voting for them?
yeah, aside from people voting, we have salaries that are fairly lucrative. Congressmen start at 174,000 and it goes up to 193,000. They also have stock investments. For example, you have well, they shouldn't be doing it, but they are doing it. Nancy Pelosi amassed 413 million in 2024. And 70% of that 413 million was in 1 year in 2024. Go figure.
I can't.
Unbelievable. So then that's insider trading, which Trump is trying to do away with. So then after Congress, when they're done, they go into lobbying roles, which is again very lucrative. 43% of them do that. And the average salary of lobbyists is 2 million. So all of them go into that and they're making even more money. So some of them have their net worth is quite high. Bernie Sanders, who's been in Congress for 34 years, although his net worth is very small comparatively, at 2 to 3 million. Chuck Schumer is in Congress for 45 years. Now imagine 45 years. His net worth is 7 million, although there are rumors that he has quite a bit more. John Thune, head of the Senate, as a Republican, he has 3 million. Hakeem Jeffries is 2 million, and poor Mike Johnson only has 350,000 and only one home. Beverly, what do these people do for this kind of salary? What are their jobs? What are their responsibilities?
Well, one of the problems with Mike Johnson is he didn't go to college to get his career politician degree.
Right.
So it's like he failed at that.
Yeah.
But anyhow, presently we have 217 Republican House representatives and 214 Democratic. Just recently, Clay Fuller, a Republican, was elected to fill the vacated seat held by Marjorie Taylor Greene in Georgia.
Yeah, and that was just a week or so, 2 weeks ago maybe?
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago. So let's talk about the Senate. First of all, they craft, debate, and they do different things. They confirm presidential appointments. They hold executive agencies. They hold trials for impeached officials. And also the House has, as a matter of fact, there's a Republican majority House Speaker who is Mike Johnson, and he is second in line of the presidential succession, a very, very powerful
Uh-huh,
position.
uh-huh.
They also draft and enact new laws, and they also have the power of the purse. They take care of taxation, borrowing money, appropriating funds, and they also have curb spending policies. They also control the budget, and they also have the authority to declare war.
Let me just interrupt for a moment here. I know you're going to talk about impeachment, so I wanted to get the definition of impeachment out. There are articles of impeachment so people understand exactly how this works. These are formal, written charges of misconduct. They could be treason, bribery, or other, quote, high crimes and misdemeanors brought by the House of Representatives against a federal official. They function as a constitutional indictment, initiating the process to potentially remove an individual from office. And the Senate then holds the trial and votes on it. Sorry, Beverly. Please continue with the House's responsibilities.
Well, they also initiate impeachment articles, and an example of this is that when they tried to impeach Trump twice. First of all, the abuse of power and obstruction of Congress regarding Ukraine in 2019, which they just proved to be absolutely false. He was not convicted, but they tried to convict him on that, and it was all a ploy by the Democrats. The
Uh-huh.
second one was inciting January 6th in 2021, the riot on the Capitol. Believe me, there was no Trump never, ever, ever said anything in that speech about going and not marching, only peacefully. And that's what he talked about. They also have oversight of the executive branch. They review, monitor, and supervise implementation of public policy.
That's both houses, right? Yeah.
Both houses, right?
Yeah.
Overriding presidential vetoes. but they need 2/3 of the House in order to do that. They also make new laws and they change existing ones. So basically, that's what both houses do.
Yeah. I'd like to just touch briefly on how the two political parties influence Congress and impact our countries. So, folks, thoughts lead to words, which lead to actions. And that's the similarity in both parties. And I was trying to think the other day, how similar are they? Well, both of them truly believe that the other party lies all the time. It's really true. The Republicans think the Democrats are lying all the time. And likewise, the Democrats believe the Republicans are lying all the time. So, how do we distinguish who's really telling the truth here? Well, the only way you can do that is by their actions, and mostly on the Democrat side, because they're the ones that have been performing and doing all kinds of absurd things. And we see it all over the news all the time for the whole world to see. For example, their actions in Minneapolis, the fury, the rage against ICE. This was very, very much supported and endorsed by Democratic leadership, Governor Walz and the mayor, Fry. Democrats led members to shut down the government for the second time. And the most recent shutdown deeply affects our homeland security. So, Beverly, how does this affect federal employees and workers? I think these actions affect a lot of voters, and in particular, it does affect our national security.
Well, just recently, actually, it was the first shutdown that was in October of 2025, and that lasted for 43 days.
Wow.
Can you imagine 750,000 people were not paid? Nearly 3 million paychecks were withheld during this shutdown. The Democrats don't care. They just want their way, and they were fighting for immigrants and objecting to ICE not having warrants when arresting these illegals. Can you imagine? You want a warrant for somebody that came over to this country illegally, and ICE is just trying to do their job through what they're supposed to be doing for Homeland Security, and you want a warrant? I
Hmm.
mean, anyhow, it's just totally unbelievable. Now, the second shutdown, okay, it's not happening now because recently, I believe it was in the end of March, the Senate voted to just shut it down. But the only problem was is that they did not go along with paying ICE, Homeland Security. Everybody was affected by this shutdown,
Well,
but they're still, even though the Senate shut them down, they still did not pay Homeland Security.
yeah, and that's still going on, to my understanding. It hasn't been resolved totally.
It's ridiculous. So, regardless of our military conflict with Iran, the Democrats are putting the country at very high risk by not supporting the Department of Homeland Security. Can you imagine? I'm afraid to go to these big malls because you don't know who's lurking in the shadows. It's,
Yeah.
it's terrible.
Yeah, and the thing is we don't know because of all of the, illegals, close to 20 million that were allowed into the country or came into the country, not allowed, just walked in during the Biden administration. We don't know how many of these people are terrorists.
They're
And I think they've said at least they know of at least 500 at one point I heard. I don't know, but, again, we can't monitor them now because Homeland Security is not being really funded.
right.
And then there's more actions, more crazy, absurd actions. If you were able to see the first State of the Union address of Trump's first term in 2017, Nancy Pelosi tore up his entire speech in front of the cameras because she said a lot of the material was objectionable. Now, in the second term, they carried on just as much as they did in the first. The second term of Trump's, and this was just last February, the State of the Union address, Omar and Tlaib yelled and shouted during the speech many times. They were very disruptive. And it didn't stop there. The entire Democratic side of the hall refused to stand up for some key points. For example, Trump asked about prioritizing protection of American citizens over illegal aliens, and they didn't stand up, meaning they don't they don't prioritize you, the American citizens, they prioritize the illegals. Unbelievable. They didn't stand up. They refused to stand up for the U.S. gold medal hockey team who were there. They refused to stand up for a 100-year-old vet being awarded the Medal of Honor for his bravery. And they refused to stand up for a pilot of one of the helicopters of the Venezuelan invasion who almost lost both legs and was bleeding out profusely almost during the entire invasion. They refused to stand up in memory of grieving families, of which there are many now, families of innocent men and women murdered by criminal illegal aliens, including the mother of Irina Zarutskaya, whose throat was slashed in North Carolina on the subway, you will recall. She's the young woman who had only been here not even a year from the war in Ukraine, and this is what she came to. They refused to stand up to protect minor children from the horrors of irreversible sex changes. They demonstrated by their actions, by their absurdity, that they are not on the side of America. It was a disgusting display. So, by their actions, and hiding behind the ugly mask of being a congressperson, they're doing this. Again, we want to know who votes for these people. Beverly, I know, and there were other displays at the time of the State of the Union, performances. They love performances. Can you recall any of them?
As a matter of fact, I can. I was channel surfing one day and I came across these crazy people look like frogs. They were dancing around in frog suits and they were dancing on TikTok and all over. And it was like, who are these people? I finally realized these are protesters. Well, liberal protesters, far left wing liberal protesters. It was unbelievable. I just couldn't get over it. And there's other things too. Just shortly after that, there were some senators and House of Representatives that were telling the military not to obey orders. There was Lisa Slotkin, Mark Kelly, Jason Crow, Maggie Goodlander, Christy Holahab, and Chris DeLuzio, who all served in the military. And what they did was they created and published a video calling on members of the United States military to refuse to obey illegal orders. They kept saying no one has to follow an order that violates the law or constitution. There's been a lot of backlash from this too because they were not able to identify what an illegal order was. You know, it's like, what do they do? I mean, it's like your son or your daughter goes into the military and they're told to obey the commanders, right? So, what do they? Can you imagine the backlash that this that could have happened in the military? Because if you can't identify what an illegal order is, you shouldn't be on TV saying anything about it. And you know, another thing, the Democrats oppose the conflict in Iran because they're saying they don't really know the reason why Donald Trump, invaded
The
Iran.
strategy, yeah.
Yes,
There's
they
no
don't
strategy.
understand. There's no purpose or object. They can't identify why he did what he did, except for the fact that Iran was threatening nuclear warfare with America. Wouldn't that be something that you would sort of like stand up for your country for?
Sure, for
You know,
47 years, yeah.
exactly. So TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, is at an all-time high. And ladies and gentlemen, this is sickening. It really is.
Yeah, yeah.
So what
And
do you
that's
think? So what do you for all of us to know right now?
again, their actions speak louder than words. I mean, that's the only way you can logically explain it. Folks, we have midterm elections coming up in November. We want to remind you, vote for policies, not personalities. Vote for the platform. At this point in time, I can't think of any platform or policies that the Democrats have aside from TDS, and that certainly isn't a policy. I mean, it's really crazy as a matter of fact. And the actions of Democrats demonstrate they do not care about you, the American public. The only logical conclusion is that they will do anything to thwart Donald Trump. And that seems to be their only platform. There is really no other logical way you can explain it. So both parties in Congress affect all of us, and you can't forget that. And if you've been voting for the Democrats for 20, 30 years, folks, you need to examine this a little bit more closely. It's not really the same party it was 20 30 years ago. Most of the party has allowed the extreme left to take it over. They've hijacked that party. And it's a shame because we really do need a two-party system in this country. But this one is really out of control.
Well, they really are. There's some key effects of party influence on Congress. And basically, this polarization, after increased gridlock, moderates of both parties are going to the left or the right. So what's happening is that let's talk about the Democrats for a minute. You see on the Democratic Party, there are no longer middle of the road Democrats. It's only the left or the right. And the left, who doesn't have that many people, that are the left wing progressives. But they've managed with their small amount of, with the minimum amount of people that they have, they've managed to take the entire party over to the left side. Can you imagine the entire Democratic Party being left wing liberal progressives? That it's
They hijacked it. They really hijacked it.
Yeah, because it's no longer my mother's or your mother's
No,
Democratic Party.
no.
It's nobody's that used to be for the working people. That no longer exists. And then they also have agenda control for whoever's in power, and particularly with the Democrats, they have agenda control. It's their way or the highway. They can vote on whatever. They can bring up anything for the vote that they want to. They can bring up their own agendas. And the progressives on the left are the driving force behind the Democrats. And how many moderates do you think are left? How many moderates do you think are left on the in the Democratic Party, Irene?
John Fetterman.
I used to think that what's his name in Pennsylvania, the governor of Pennsylvania, what's his name?
Shapiro?
Shapiro, right.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
thought he was kind of middle of the road, but
No, he switched. He switched over, yeah.
yeah, there aren't too many left. There really aren't.
And I really do like the the gentleman who was the, sportscaster, Stephen A.
Well, I think you did mention that to me once before. Yeah, you did.
I think he's a lot of common sense, and he's always yelling at the Democrats for them to get with it, you know?
Yeah, but, that's really not that many people to be the
No.
driving force with, you have 100 people, that are in the Senate and 435
Yeah.
in the, House of Representatives, so it's really crazy.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
they also have committee power. They can pick whatever they want and whoever they want,
yeah.
like they did with Swalwell, it's like they put him on all of the ethic committees.
Oh, please. I think 3 or 4 days of constant news on Swalwell is enough to last anybody, so I don't wanna hear about him anymore.
Well, wait a minute. He's the guy that came out. He was like so against Kavanaugh. It was like unbelievable, calling him a sexual deviant and everything else. And now,
Yeah.
well, this guy is like, he's worse
Well,
than anybody.
yeah. And so many of them knew about it apparently and hid it.
Yeah, right.
It never
Exactly.
spoke out. Yeah.
I never
Yeah.
thought it was that bad.
Folks, you need to get out in November for the midterms to vote. And there's many reasons to vote. Voting facilitates change. It helps us make change. It's a pillar of our democracy. It impacts our present and our future because we hold the power. Don't forget, we hold the power. And there are not that many countries that can say that. Voting protects human rights. It's a right and a historical milestone. White men over 20 not too long ago were the only ones up until 1920 that could vote. But in 1920, they finally passed the 19th Amendment, which ratified giving women the right to vote. And those poor suffragettes, they battled for years protesting, going out on the street, incurring wrath of their neighbors, their husbands. They were arrested. They were held in jails. They were force fed to confess. It was really amazing. So we can't let that. I mean, women, especially women out there, come on, you've got to vote. These people went through a lot to get that right for us. And when we don't vote, others vote for us because every single vote counts. And don't you think it doesn't? I have a friend who said the other day to me, she says, well, I'm not going to bother. It doesn't even matter. My vote doesn't count. Well, guess what? Every single vote counts. There are examples of how in this country, certain races for Senate, for Congress, were won by just 48 votes. So if, you have to get out and you have to vote, folks. That's all there is to it. We really, really encourage you to do that. So Beverly, what can seniors do here?
Well, first of all, you have to know your district, and that's very simple. All you have to do is go online to see your congressman, write to your congressman, and go to Congress, Congress.gov, Congress.gov, and you see how they voted because you can go and look to see what issues that they were faced with and how they voted, whether they voted for something or if they voted for transgenderism, you want to know. Okay, if you certainly want to know if they voted for something like, yes, it's okay to mutilate my daughter or my son
Yeah.
because they don't know who they are. If they don't know who they are, well, then that's too tough.
Yeah, and that's a great site because it gives you not only what they voted for, what they did, but their entire history of while they were in Congress.
Exactly.
So it's really good place to go to.
Absolutely. Folks, we've come to the end of our little segment today, and we'd like to introduce you to an amazing young woman. Her name is Nicole Hubka. She's president of the Middlesex County, New Jersey Young Republicans, and possibly the leader of the Young Republicans for all of the state of New Jersey. She's inspiring to all of us, and she's only 22 years old. Get that. Listen to her stand up for our freedom. Folks, as seniors, we mentor our young people so that they can learn. However, keep in mind that we can also learn from our young people. So please listen to the video with Nicole with us.
15 years old, I began interning with the Consulate General of Slovakia, gaining early exposure to diplomacy and international affairs. By the age of 19 and 20, I was working as an advisor with the permanent mission of Slovakia to the United Nations, engaging in high-level discussions and gaining first-hand experience in global policy. At 20 years old, I was sent to Tamil Nadu, India, where I worked on sustainable development goals for 2 months, seeing firsthand the realities of humanitarian work and impact of global cooperation. And at 22, I expanded my international experience even further. I served as a youth delegate at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. I interned with GlobeSec, a global think tank based in Bratislava, Slovakia, focused on international security, policy, and transatlantic relations. These experiences shaped my understanding of leadership, not just locally, but also globally. But despite all of that international experience, I came back home and I saw something that needed attention. As of July 2025, I saw that our Republican Party, especially our young Republicans, needed strength, energy, and leadership. So I stepped up. Because leadership is not about waiting for opportunity, it's about answering the call when others won't. Middlesex County is not easy, it is very challenging. It requires resilience, that strategy, and that persistence. But I am here to prove that no county is impossible when you have the right leadership and the right team. For 6 long years, this county had no young Republican chair. 6 years of silence and 6 years of missed opportunity. It's a document. It is proof of what happens when people come together with a purpose and determination. So we are no longer rebuilding, we are relaunching. That means creating real opportunities for leadership, expanding our presence in every township, hosting impactful events that bring people together, supporting candidates and causes that reflect our values, and most importantly, building a community where young people feel heard, supported, and motivated. This is about long-term growth, not quick wins, and not temporary momentums, actually. We are building something that will last. And this is where Middlesex County Young Republicans step into something bigger. We are the next generation of leaders, and the future of this county will be shaped by whether or not we choose to show up. We cannot afford to be passive, we cannot afford to be quiet, and we cannot afford to wait. If we want to shape the future of Middlesex County, then we must show up in our communities consistently, get involved in local boards, councils, and civic spaces, build relationships and earn trust across every town, support one another and grow our presence together, and lead with professionalism, discipline, and purpose. And this is how you build influence. This is how you build credibility, and this is how you build a future. Because change doesn't happen from the outside, it happens when people step from within. And that is exactly what we are doing. I didn't step into this role for a title. I stepped into this role to actually build something meaningful, to create opportunities where there were none, and to give a voice where there was silence, and to ensure that no young person in this county ever feels like they don't have a place at the table again. We are here, we are organized, and we are just getting started. So thank you.
Thank you, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and help us grow. I hope you enjoyed Nicole as we did. If you'd like to receive a digital copy of our newsletter with lots of information that we cover in our episodes, just email us. It's freedomkeeperirene@gmail.com. That's freedomkeeperirene@gmail.com or freedomkeeperbev@gmail.com. freedomkeeperbev@gmail.com. And our next podcast episode is on America the Affordable. See you then, and thank you.
Thanks, everybody. So long.